I try to explain these people who don't understand Israel. Like if you read Timothy Snyder, for instance, his history of the Third Reich, the beginning of it, when Hitler was still at peace with Europe, he went around to England and Poland and Russia, and he said to all these countries, what can we do about the Jewish problem? And they didn't say, what Jewish problem? They said, oh yeah, the Jewish problem. And so Hitler was talking with England and, the Soviet Union about where can we put the Jews? And so, fast forward to the present, people don't understand that the Jews from history, thousands of years history, know that nobody has their back. They can say they do. The evangelicals suddenly love us. I'm so suspicious of that. Please don't do me any favors, please. Oh, you're the ones who ran the pogroms and now you love us? No.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
Welcome to the Jew Function. I'm Leo.
I'm Seth. Hey, everyone.
My loyal co-host, my friend, my buddy. How's it going down there? Up there?
Good.
I don't know.
We just had the mayor. I'm in New York today. They just had the mayoral election. We just had the governor election in Jersey. So Zohran Mamdani won. So we'll see if all the drama, how it'll all unfold. There's a lot of different opinions about it.
They're handing out baklavas, as you like to call them. That's usually the custom.
We'll see. I'll hold my opinions in the meantime, but change is afoot. Oh,
yeah, I think so. I mean, you know how it is. I forgot who said it, but some wise person said, he was like, geez, I hope he sucks as mayor, because the worst thing that can happen is if he actually also does a good job mayoring the city, and then that just kind of gets him more ingrained in among the people, and those who resist him will, and then when he comes out with some weird anti-Jewish laws, like our old buddy Hitler, everybody is already going to be on his side and against the Jews. Again, I'm not accusing him of anything yet, but there's so much circumstantial evidence to show his ties to all kinds of nefarious organizations that I don't know. I mean, look, a part of me, as a former New Yorker, a part of me wants to say, what, he's a mayor, he's got some revolutionary ideas, great, more power to him. He thinks he can pay rent for 2 million people, great. I wish I could be there and get that rent paid for me. He's going to help immigrants. I was an immigrant. I wish I would, I was there and I could get helped by a pro-immigrant mayor for sure. I mean, there's a lot of great things that can happen. It's just that I'm not so naive, having lived in the Middle East most of my life. I take everything that Islamic Shiite people say with a grain of salt. Forgive me for being a little skeptical about their intentions, but it doesn't matter really, because we are not here to really talk about that. We'll talk about that with our guest. These changes, there's demographic changes that are taking place, sweeping through Europe, through New York. But what we really care about is the Jews. Where do we fit into all of this? We, as in collectively, the Jews in New York, in the U.S., the Jews in Israel. How does that affect us? What does it mean for us at this point in time? And of course, how this whole thing ties with the main question for which we have gathered here today, and that is, how do we solve anti-Semitism and Jew hatred? And our guest is today, unless you want to add something on that specifically about your feeling. Actually, it's just in a few words, say what your feeling is. You say you're going to reserve judgment.
No, I really want to reserve judgment. I have plenty of feelings, but we've been talking about this for years already. That doesn't matter no matter what, no matter where, the pressure will come against the Jews. I don't care about what costume, what skin suit anyone is wearing. If the Jews don't unite, the pressure will come. It can come from the left. It could come from the right. It can come as a surprise. It could come with an invitation. So yeah, I don't need to really even. There's no need to even comment on the situation now. We're talking about a much bigger issue.
Right. It's true. It is bigger. And the nice thing about the Jew function is that we get to meet all kinds of interesting people and people who sometimes you don't think, well, you know, how is this person related to the problem? How can he help us solve the problem? But what we discovered more often than not is that, you know, each person we bring here on the show adds another perspective, another point of view. And it helps to create this picture of, you know, what is a Jew? Who are we? What our role is in the system? And gradually, I think we're together. We're arriving at a picture, and for the most part, I think we're able to clarify a little bit with all those guests. Like, you know, who are we as a people? What is our place in the system? You know, who is a Jew? What is the definition of a Jew? Why are we? You know, we have a unique role in the system. Everybody has a role, but you know, what's our role in it? And how is that connected to solving anti-Semitism? So I think every guest adds something, even when they come from like some strange starting point. And this guest is definitely unique. You know, he's been a lawyer for, I think, over 35 years. He really has this, you know, spirit of the soul of an activist and bring positive change to the world. And he recently released a folk musical titled Sarah Arthur, The Spiritual Journey of a Jewish American Woman. And it explores these exact themes of identity, resilience, and hope. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation to hear from that unique perspective from someone like that. So let's just give a warm welcome to Alan Graf. Alan, there he is.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Alan. Good.
It's
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. I'm thrilled, actually. I'm married to Shiksa, and my wife said to me the other day, "Well, you don't practice the Jewish religion. So you're not really Jewish." I went, wrong. I am Jewish to the core, to the DNA, and you know, from my dad escaped Nazi Germany.
Your father.
My father.
Your father.
And his sister. There were 6 brothers and one gal. It was Simon and Leah Graf. They were living in Offenbach, Germany. They saw the signs and they got all their kids out except for one who was 14 with fake Polish passports. They said, we're going to get our kids out. So my dad and his sister, my sister was 16, my Aunt Frida, and my dad was about 18, made it to America. America at the time, interestingly enough, FDR was not allowing Jews into the U.S. and Eleanor Roosevelt got into a big fight with him over a ship that was trying to
the St. Louis. Are they related to that?
Yeah. So and so a lot of people think FDR, he was really a great president. Well, he had his strong and weak points, but my dad came over here and met my mom. He saw her in a beauty parlor, and then he went to join the U.S. Air Force, decided to go back and fight the Nazis. And he was a GI. And then at the end of the war, he found his brother in a concentration camp. And he got there a day early. They were about to exterminate all the Jews in the concentration camp. And he saved his brother, my Uncle Joe, and he brought him back here. So that's kind of been, I call that my blessing and my curse of my life. It's the reason I became an activist and a lawyer and what I do stuff, really, because, you know, it's driven me thinking about, you know, I get teary-eyed thinking about every time my grandparents being led to the gas chambers. And, you know, it's shaped my whole life. It really has. And I went back to there's a museum in New York City where you can actually trace your heritage. And I found out my grandmother had actually worked as a a cook for a Nazi military family for 2 years before they sent her off to be killed. So she served the purpose. My grandfather was immediately sent to the camps. I wake up every morning and think about that, 75 years worth, and I always feel like driven. I'm just on a mission to make sure that doesn't happen again. Um, you know, my parents felt safe here, but I was raised in New York City in Jackson Heights, New York, and when I was living there, it was predominantly Jewish and Irish. And the Irish went to St. Joan of Arc, and the nuns would teach them that we had killed Jesus. So they'd come out looking to avenge God's death. And I got, beat up a number of times as a Jew. And I learned to run my ass off and figure out where all the backyards and fences were. And, that's how I started my life, with my dad as escapee and then fighting anti-Semitism in New York City, the enlightened town that it claims to be. So that's kind of how I started off. And, throughout my civil rights career, I've fought. When I was in Portland, Oregon, I sued the Portland police. I found out the guy who ordered pepper spraying of thousands of protesters when George Bush came to town was a closet Nazi. He had pictures of Adolf Hitler in his house. He got married at Hitler's summer home in Germany. He set up a secret memorial for German soldiers in Portland. It was unbelievable. And this was the guy who ordered the pepper spraying of thousands of protesters. And one of his friends came forward and told us this. And then I went to the paper. And then the next day, a car pulled up next to me. I was in Portland, and a guy pulled a gun at me. He said, "You're a dead man." And the car chased me around a number of streets until I ran into a bunch of hard hats. And I said, "Somebody's trying to kill me." And they went, "Oh, we'll call the police." I said, "No, that was the police." So I called the city attorney. I was in a big lawsuit against Portland. I said, "This is what happened." They went, "Oh, that couldn't be the police. No, 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 no." And I said, "It was." So they said, "Well, just file a report." Well, 4 weeks happened and nothing happened. And I had a radio show in Portland, talk radio that I did with about 30, 40,000 listeners. And I got on, I told everybody, your favorite lefty Jewish lawyer nearly got assassinated for suing a Nazi cop. And the mayor at the time, Mayor Vera Katz, who had actually escaped from Nazi Germany as a young girl, she called up the district attorney and said, "You got to talk with Graf." So they brought me in, and I brought a private investigator, and they interrogated me for an hour and a half, trying to blow holes in my story. And finally, they admitted that probably this happened. And so they went looking for the person. Of course, they never found out who did it, but I've experienced anti-Semitism throughout my entire life, from the very beginning of my life, to being raised as a kid, to being a outspoken Jewish lawyer. It's something I just live with, but I'll tell you one thing, it's never shut me up. And every time it happens, I open my mouth even bigger, because it's basically, I don't want to curse on your show, but it's like, you can't shut me up, and I'm going to get louder. And every time you try to shut this Jew up, I'm going to get louder and more in your face. And that's how I operate.
Alan, when did that happen to you? That was what, in the 70s?
What, the Portland?
Yeah.
In Portland? Oh, no, that was back in 2004, 2005.
Oh, recent, relatively recent.
And let me tell you something. This may be controversial, but when I went against this cop, he's like, pictures of Hitler in his house, and all his friends were telling me he's totally weird. He's the guy who ordered all these people to get pepper sprayed. I called the ADL and I said, "I'm a Jewish lawyer. I'm going against a Nazi cop. I need your help." I said, "We'll get back to you." A day later, they called me and they said, "We can't help you." Why not? The Jewish community has a really good relationship with the Portland police. We don't want to disturb that. You're on your own. Well, I was like, "Well, thank you very much. Okay, so where are your principles?" So we're gonna like it's all opportunistic. Is that how it works? So and at another time when I was in Floyd, Virginia, I moved to Virginia and I wrote. Remember Charlotte, where they had the Nazis marching in the street? Well, because I'm a constitutional lawyer, right before that, the ACLU called me and asked me to represent those folks to get them a permit. And I said, hell no, hell no. I mean, I believe in the First Amendment, but sorry, I don't represent Nazis. It's not on my list. And then that happened. And I wrote an article. I was writing an article in the local paper. It was in Floyd, Virginia. And I said, flying the Confederate flag is really similar to flying a swastika. It has the same amount of hate, maybe towards Black people, but and then right after that, I got letters in the mail, unsigned, on the internet, Jew, we're going to drive you out of town. Just a lot of hate. And I called the ADL again and they declined to help me. So at least my experience, I had a good experience with
them. There's a lot of fights to fight. You just looking for fights, or you?
Are we trying to solve this thing, Alan?
Yeah, because there's a lot. I mean, we could pick 1,000 people to go sue, like right now, and then tomorrow another 1,000. That's a difficult strategy. It's part of a strategy, but it's a difficult strategy.
Which strategy?
Well,
micro suing. Just here in each neighborhood, sue this guy, sue this guy, sue this guy, sue this guy. It's like it's never ending. Basically,
whack-a-mole.
Yeah. Well, lawsuits are better than shooting people. If we had a lawsuit, between the Israelis and the Palestinians, it would have been a lot better than everybody killing each other. So when people look at negatively at lawsuits, I say, well, what's the alternative?
I'll tell you. I'll say I'm not saying lawsuits are not important, and sometimes that's what you have to do. What I'm saying is that what's the end goal of that strategy? You can move to town, and go up against the worst guy who's got Hitler memorabilia all over his house, and you can move to another town and go up against the guy with Confederate flags. What I'm saying is you're going to need an army of thousands or tens of thousands of people like you going to every place, and maybe building a coalition of goodness and letting the goodness kind of quiet them down. Overtaking them with goodness might be more strategic.
Well, let's hear them in. I mean, Alan, you're positioned in an interesting place because you're not second generation, you're first generation. After Holocaust.
Usually it's third generation.
Yeah, usually we have people on the show. It's second, third generation, right? Like your parents talked about the Holocaust at home, so you have that on one side.
They never talked about it. Actually, every time I asked them about it, they leave the room.
Fair enough, but yeah. It was there, right? You could feel it, right?
Yeah.
It's fairly fresh. And then you live in this country in the U.S., which for several decades really felt like a great place for Jews. Maybe still is in some places. We had guests who were like just praising the country and the opportunities and the Golden Medina and all that stuff, and yet we're seeing a steady rise in anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is only steadily going up. It's not steadily going away as you'd expect after the Holocaust. It's rather picking up again. And so the question I think Seth and I are circling around with you is not just what's the strategies? Is it suing them? But really, did you ever stop and ask yourself, where is it coming from? Like, what's the root of it all? Is it something that's, in every generation it's rooted in something else? Is there a central root, a primordial root? Is there something bigger at play here? What's the story? Like, otherwise, if you have a problem, you're trying to get to the root of it before you can solve it. So
I think you may disagree with me, but I think it's racism generally. It's people fear people that aren't like them. I think anti-Semitism is a type of racism that's particular to the Jews, but you're going to see it against African Americans. You're going to see it against migrants here now. That's happening with the Trump administration. They're targeting everybody as Latino and Latino. As a matter of fact, they just now they're allowing only white South Africans to come in. It's that's that sort of hatred directed at a particular class of people, whether it's Jews or Blacks or gays or trans people. I think it all comes from the same gut deformity in the human psyche. I don't think it's really particular. The Jews have been, I always sort of kid around. I say, people say, some of my Catholic and Protestant friends say, "Oh, you guys are the chosen people." And I say, we'd rather not be the chosen people. We got chosen for too much crap over the years. And so we'd rather not be singled out. And, I understand. I'm not naive. I don't live in the Middle East, but you can tell from my history, I'm not naive at all about anti-Semitism. I've gotten beat up. I've lost my family to it. I understand that, but I also think it's not particular to the Jews. It's something that's particular to a defect in the human species. We haven't gotten to a point yet where we can't look at each other as just human beings. I mean, if you look at the Middle East, it's Semites. It's Arabs are Semites too. And you go back to the Bible, it was Abraham was the father of both the Arabs and the Jews.
Yeah, clearly, anti-Semitism is a misnomer. There's no question.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's irrational. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's ingrained hatred. And I read a book by Peter Beinart about it's called Gaza Reckoning. Afterwards, he's been a Zionist for years, but then he looks at it and trying to understand what actually happened and how Jews deal with it. And I've been to seminars here we call a Torah on Tap. We talk about the Jews in Asheville. And Asheville is a very cool town, by the way. We have a Jewish woman mayor, Esther Mannheimer. We talked about how we feel about what's happening in Israel and what happened with Hamas, and then Israel's reaction. Of course, as we say in New York and even Asheville, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, more like 10 opinions, and so we all feel differently. But the common thread, I think, that we should be proud of is that we really care about our humanity as Jews. We don't want to get to a point where we'll become barbaric and we don't care about somebody else, whether they're Jewish or not. I think that, for me, that makes me a proud Jew because,
Right.
I look at the Torah, and Torah doesn't, revenge is not, something that we're supposed to be doing. And so, though, I have a friend, Buzzy Levine, who runs an instrument store, and he's a little bit different minded from me. And he says, well, the Jews always held to a higher standard than everybody else.
True.
Mandami says, well, we can't have a theocracy in Israel. Well, why didn't he mention Iran? And I understand why Jews are skeptical of Mandami. And I think becoming the mayor, he's not going to be able to run rampant. I think he realizes as a politician, he has to refine his views. I'm hopeful, and I like a lot of his politics. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt with a close look at what he's doing. If he starts coming across as anti-Semitic, then he's just going to blow himself up. There's too many Jews in New York. So I'm not really worried about Mandami. I knew you all were talking about that before I came on. I'm not worried about it. And I like progressive politics. But I'm also realistic too. You were talking before, Seth, about not just suing, but being more positive. Well, I understand that philosophy. I lived in a hippie commune for 15, 16 years on and off, trying to live in a community. It was a community called The Farm. And that's one of the things
I know about it.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing is trying to live my beliefs as opposed to fighting the system. I fight the system for a while. I get worn out. I go try to live in a community where we're trying to practice stuff. I mean, I've always sort of dreamed about moving to Israel and living in a kibbutz.
Well, hold on. I want to stop you there before you because you
What a rich
open up.
life.
Yeah, many interesting tangents.
Very rich life, Alan.
Specifically about, forget Mamdani for a second. I want to ask you about that. You said you spent about 15, 16 years in a hippie commune.
On and
Why?
off.
What's that?
12 and then another 5 later on.
Okay, so if it was so great, why aren't you living there right now?
Well, because communism doesn't work.
Okay, good.
You know,
I know.
you have to have incentives. You can't, if there's no incentive, and people will put out different types of energy and motivation, all get rewarded the same. That's not going to work. So I've been, I walked into, I used to work with the Black Panthers and SDS back in the 60s. I was like, Bob Dylan has a song that says, I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. Well, back then I knew everything. I knew exactly where it was at. And now at 75, I'm not really that sure, So, I knew where it was at. And, I worked with a lot of those groups, and I saw hypocrisy right away in some of their ranks, very patriarchal. The Black Panthers was a very patriarchal organization. So was SDS, Students for Democratic Society. And I decided to move to a community. It was guru driven. We had a guru, spiritual teacher.
With the farm?
Yeah, the farm. And supposedly he used a lot of you looked at different religions to try to put together something that was sort of a hippie religion. And I followed that for years. And at some point I realized I lost my free will. I'd abdicated my intelligence and my ability to make decisions for my own life to some other person. And especially when I was asking him whether I could marry somebody, I had to get his approval. And I thought, this is wrong. This is wrong. And my mother kept saying, when are you going to cut your hair and leave that damn farm? So she even sent down a rabbi to rescue me from the farm at one point. It was hilarious.
So the Jews saved your life.
Well, yeah. So, but, as I said to Seth, one of the things I learned about that is the farm didn't work because it wasn't really totally equal, but it was, there was no real reward for incentive. And I think the capitalists, become much more of a capitalist since then, but I believe in regulated capitalism. If it's totally free market, then you can have, joint companies like Elon Musk just take over it. So there has to be limitations.
So just in parentheses, because I also don't want to go down that particular rabbit hole, but just in parentheses, you say you saw that communism and this just utopian socialism doesn't work. It has this big issue that you just hit on the head, the motivation. And really, if you look at those socialist theories, they kind of stop, even Marx said, that it's incomplete. We know we want to ruin, destroy what comes first, but what are we actually building? We're not sure. So everybody kind of got stuck on the destroying things, but not really, okay, what should replace it? Nobody really knows. And yet people still today running on that agenda. Like Mamdani, he ran on as a socialist / communist ideas. So
democratic socialism.
Semantics, but
it's big. It's a big difference when Marx rams his theory down your throat, when the government rams its theory down your throat with repressive regimes and anti-Semitism. It's not going to work. It's going to blow up.
Okay.
Yeah, Putin's trying to do that still. What democratic socialists are into, more government run programs, but it's voted in. It's not rammed.
So let's fast forward.
That's a huge difference.
Let's fast forward this a little bit, because Seth and I talk about it a lot in our show. We talk about the shortcomings of socialism and communism, and in fact we say, look, it would be great to live in a place where everything is taken care of. In fact, the nuclear family is very close to a socialist unit, right? Because everybody's taken care of. Everybody puts in the effort that they can. You don't demand the 5-year-old to do what the 30-year-old is doing, and then everybody gets exactly what they need. It's perfect. But somehow you step out of the boundaries of the family, all hell breaks loose. It's like every man for himself, and let the strong men win, and it's this weird conflict. It's this clash is driving people crazy. And what
Yeah,
we
yeah,
you know
yes and
hold on,
no.
hold on, let me just finish the
Okay.
thought. And what we're saying is that it would be great to live in a humanity, in a society where these ideals are upheld, and that the society actually does take care of the individual in this way, and it does give you the safety net, and everybody does help each other, and everybody puts in what they can and takes what they need. That sounds great. However, unless you fix something about what you just mentioned at the beginning of the show, this flaw, this distorted quality in people, unless we fix that first, unless we work on ourselves first, you can't do any of those things. You'll always have to shove them down people's throats. You have to use bayonets or guns or whatever to force them to follow it, and it will never be
If
that
everybody,
model.
in short, speak, give me a
Yeah.
second. If everybody loves everyone, communism is the way to go. Until then, it's not a good system because you're going to have to take from one guy and give to the other guy. And
Which
you
comes
also,
first? Yeah.
Oh,
The
which
chicken,
love has
the
to
egg,
come
love,
first.
chicken or the
Love
egg.
has to come
love.
first. That's it. And
Well,
we're going to start small.
I
We're
don't
going to
believe
start
it's
small. And
yeah.
hopefully we're going to start with the Jewish people who are one family, who are made up of every color, who are made up of every belief system, who are made up of every sexual orientation. It should be a small enough group. We need to get this little tiny group, even a portion of this little tiny group, to be incentivized to love each other. And like you said, every town you lived across the entire country, and every town you lived in, somehow the mayor of that town is a Jew. How is it happening?
Yeah.
How is it, right? It's something is weird about these people. You said earlier there's nothing exceptional about this people and about versus other people, but it is. It's not like you went to one town and it's an Indian mayor, and you went to another town, it's an Apache mayor, and you went to another town, it's an African American. No, this one was a Jew. Here's a Jew. There's Jews everywhere. What's happening? Right.
Yeah.
So our premise here is let's get love going between this small group, and let's see how that affects the system. Then we can all share everything.
Yeah. Well, we tried that on the farm. Oh, and by the way, I'm pushing my album.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
Okay, tell us about it.
Because I am a musician too, and the album deals with the issues we're talking about. It's called Sarah Arthur: A Spiritual Journey of an American Jewish Woman, a Folk Musical, and the website is Sarah Arthur Project, PROGECT.com, SarahArthurProject.com.
She a real person or a made-up character?
She's a made-up character,
Okay.
and in part, she's me.
I had a feeling.
And in part, she's other people that I just made up. She visits Israel. She lives on a kibbutz. I never did that. She went to a synagogue that was attacked by terrorists. That never happened to me. So there's different stuff in there. At the end of her life, if you ever read the book Herman Hesse, Siddhartha, it's sort of the story of the Buddha. She's at the end of her life, she talks about the ferry boat that's going to take her to the great beyond. So there's a lot of different stuff in there. Her dad was named Bernard, escaped from Nazi Germany. So was mine. She had an aunt, Frida, who was my dad's sister. So there's a lot of similarities to my life in there. But through this musical, she deals with all the issues we're talking about: Jewish identity, dealing with hatred against people, against other refugees. She sees, and like through my eyes, the struggle of Jewish refugees coming from Nazi Germany, similar to refugees now coming into the U.S. I mean, seeing some of the sort of similarities in that and how they're treated in a similar disrespectful manner. So, and I lived in Guatemala for 3 years. I adopted a Guatemalan daughter. I worked on a relief and development project called Plenty. I built water systems in schools and down there. So I got to meet all the Guatemalan people. And so that's part of the story. But anyway, it's a lot of the stories, I try to, at 75, especially, I've had 2 kids. I try as best as I can to not tell people I'm right, but more like ask questions to get them to think. I think that's the best thing, because nobody's ever, other than a judge, I don't think I've ever convinced anybody that I was right. So it's a story of like a lot of questions. She goes through a lot of questioning throughout her life, raising her kids, seeing her kids, trying to impart a moral structure And that's one of the things I'm really proud of being a Jew, the moral structure of Judaism. It's a powerful thing that we've had for thousands of years. And my worry, besides what's happening, of course, I'm not one of those people who thinks, oh, Hamas was just reacting because they were oppressed. No, I'm not one of those people who has that naive interpretation. It was barbaric. But the reaction that Israel had, and I understand, and I really get it. I try to explain this to people who don't understand Israel. Like if you read Timothy Snyder, for instance, his history of the Third Reich, the beginning of it, when Hitler was still at peace with Europe, he went around to England and Poland and Russia, and he said to all these countries, what can we do about the Jewish problem? And they didn't say, what Jewish problem? They said, oh yeah, the Jewish problem.
Of course.
So Hitler was talking with England and, the Soviet Union about where can we put the Jews? And so, fast forward to the present, people don't understand that the Jews from history, thousands of years history, know that nobody has their back. They can say they do. The evangelicals suddenly love us. I'm so suspicious of that.
As you should be.
Like, please don't do me any favors, please. Oh, you're the ones who ran the pogroms and now you love us? No. So I get why Israel has to be the baddest ass player in the Middle East, because they feel like if they don't just look like they're crazy mofos, somebody's going to turn around and try to blow them up. I get all of that. I really do. At the same time, there's old Randy Newman tune, and it goes, boom goes London, boom Paris, more room for you and more room for me. They all hate us anyhow, so let's drop the big one now. The point of that is you can kill and kill and kill and kill, and it's never going to go away. There's some point you have to figure out how to come to peace with your enemies, or else it's just going to go on forever. I hate to see that Israel is going to have to be militaristic forever. I think it's really hard on the country.
Let me drop a little bomb here, since you quoted Randy Newman. So, let me drop one here for you and for our listeners. What we found in studying Jewish history and studying the words of Jewish sages in depth, we didn't pick and choose what we like. We just took the whole thing. Like, okay, what are they saying? Not what parts do I like and what don't I like? What fits my worldview now? And no, what is the complete thing? What is the complete message? And the message is, it's not about, killing or not killing. You live in a system. You're part of a system. If you want to, and this whole system is a reflection of you. It's a hologram, if you want to talk about it in these terms, or as our sages says, man is a small world. However you want to talk about it. At the end of the day, if you want to see peace in the system, you have to make peace in you and between you and the people around you. And the people around you, and those people, someone has to start it. And the ones who are starting it, they need to be Jews. Now, they don't have to be Jews by birth necessarily. They need to have that desire to start it. That's really what it's about. Because like any big change in the system, it doesn't happen overnight. You need a small few cells to start it, and then the rest of the system joins in. Yeah. So we can say that we, humanitarian and we like people and we identify with the suffering of others. That's great. But you will never be able to fix it. You'll never be able to stop the wars and choose peace unless you first focus on peace between us. And that's the one thing Jews run away from all the time. We'll help the blacks do their peace, and we'll help these guys do the peace, and we'll go there and the gays, and we'll pick up, we'll take up any cause, anything except to talk to Moishe there from the other synagogue, which I don't like. That's our issue. And I think you've been at it long enough, Alan, to maybe provide a perspective on that. I'm curious, because otherwise we go back to the beginning of the conversation. We can sue them, or you can go to war with them. You'll get a little respite, and then it's back to the courtroom, back to war, back to... it's never going to go away because the root of the problem hasn't gone away.
Let me put some icing on the cake, Alan, before you slice it up for us. Leo presented something here, and what we can add to that is just to say that it's not something, I don't want to come from it like from a mystical angle, and I can't talk about it just as, even though we always try to, it's just a law of nature, because it would take 15 minutes of giving some background to do that, and I don't want to waste that time right now. But there's some kind of emergent thing that also happens when this small group called Jews unites. So Leo's saying the Jews have to unite, and then it can help with everyone else. There's this other, I'm trying not to go mystical on us here, but there's some magical, otherworldly, eternal, I don't know what to say, thing that is also this X factor on what Leo's saying. It's not just we're doing groundwork. It's like we're doing groundwork, and then there's this divine, like a man and a woman, right?
You can just say emergent quality. I think Alan knows emergent qualities. They're things that you cannot predict. It's like you give the example set of hydrogen and oxygen, put it together, you get water, right? Where did that come from? Two gases making water. So it's kind of like that. We like to give that example. It's a good one.
So without that piece, our argument, for lack of a better word, is incomplete. We're also counting on that piece, and we keep pointing to that piece throughout our whole story. That's a really important piece to put on the table here, that it's not just earthly physics that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with that. And I think it's not just, I think it comes even down to more of a basic, not just having peace among Jews, but having peace in yourself. Are you at peace with yourself? And, I'm in turmoil a lot, but there's also a part of me that I know who I am at this point in time. I better at 75, or else I failed. And I know I have integrity. I know when something comes, people have offered me large sums of money sometimes to do bad things. I was like, not interested, not even interested. I worked against a big chemical company in Tennessee, and they were like, we could write you a big check to make this all go away. I said, there's the door, goodbye. And, so I feel good about myself to where, I think if you're going to change, I agree with you about one essential component, which both of you guys raised, is that if you're going to change the world, make sure you got your own, you got it together. You have your own integrity together, at least your own morals. And, I went to Hebrew school, and my parents sent me to an Orthodox Hebrew school. They came from Orthodox families, and they felt a little guilty about not following tradition, so they sent their son to an Orthodox Hebrew school. And I remember, just as before I was bar mitzvah, just reading about some of the morals and the sages. You talked about the old Jewish sages, and there's a great moral structure that's been passed on from generation to generation among Jews. And that's really a very big part of me. And it's within my whole life. It's how I try to act. And I don't study the Torah, but I got a sense of what it is, to be fair. And, I think that's really key. I agree that, we have to find peace individually, but I don't think we can say, oh, let's not do anything until we find peace individually. I think it's both. You have to work at a more collective, global level too. That's why this Sarah Arthur musical that I put together, it's really just about a woman who seeks identity through her entire life. And it's really me in some ways. And it's also people who listen to it. Constantly asking yourself, am I living up to what I say I am about? Am I walking the talk? That's a big question for me all the time. Am I full of it, or am I really doing what I say I believe in?
the only everything you said is, it's very true. You can feel that it comes from your all of your life's experience, that it's not just talk, that that you're really feeling it. The only thing we would add to this is that we are not just talking about a system of morals and ethics, which we as the Jews, we choose that. You can choose something else. This is more moral versus this. This can be applied to certain things in this world. We're talking about a system of laws, of rules. Like you're a lawyer, you're practicing it, which is as harsh and as absolute as gravity and electromagnetism. It's that, except we don't really feel the effects of those laws so much because they happen on a level just above us. Like, you can study anything below you, but above you, it gets hazy, right? When you get into psychology, already it gets a little cloudy. Beyond that, it's theoretical. But some people have attained that and told us about it. They're telling us, Jewish sages have been telling us over the years, again and again.
Love your neighbor as yourself is an actual law of the system. It's not a moral premise.
Exactly, and that this group that is called Jews, that are, as Seth said, are just really representatives, if you will, of all nations. We're like the test case. We're the microcosmic little laboratory where this has to happen. That's the only thing we're adding to everything you said, is that it has to happen among us. Yeah, that inner peace in the individual, and that has to also happen in the connection between you and other Jews. That's otherwise there will not be peace in the world. Now the question is, can you live with such a premise? Because it puts a lot of responsibility. You said you didn't want to be chosen, but well, guess what? Someone has to be chosen, and it just happens.
Everyone is chosen for something. We have this role that if a group of us unite, it's interesting. Also, Buddha was one guy. Jesus was one guy. Each religion, you usually have one kind of figurehead. The Jews received the Torah as a nation. Men, women, and children together received that whole divine revelation.
It's one man and one heart.
On the condition, it says that Rashi says there that they all were as one man with one heart. There's something here that when the Jews connect, even what's happening here between us, these kind of different opinions between us, when we bring these things together and try and find somehow above our personal opinions some kind of warmth, some kind of connection between us, we're affecting, let's say, 1 million people in some kind of field around us, let's say on some soul level or something. So you can't really get away from metaphysical. Isn't the way we like to look at it, but short of sharing some vocabulary in the meantime, let's just call it that when the Jews are able to connect above their differences, that resonates throughout the entire system and creates the foundation for peace, because peace means that two things that are not the same are able to make peace between them.
To be whole, right? In Hebrew.
Peace doesn't mean that that I wipe out all of my opinions in order to get along with you. Peace means I have mine, you have yours, but somehow we can make peace. We say in Hebrew, you went to Hebrew school a little bit, maybe you remember, he who make oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. He who makes peace in the heaven, meaning in heaven you can have fire and water together, but on earth you can't. On earth, all the opposites extinguish each other. And what we need to do is we're opposite from each other, right? You got LGBTQ on this side, you got Ben Gvir or some conservative right on the other side, you got this, you got this. How can we somehow find some love of each other that we can make peace between all these differences? And if we can do that, it'll spread through the network.
And by the way, it's not easy. Is that just one thought to add to that? It's not easy. It's work. You got to work at it 24/7. It's not like, hey, yeah, let's, like the hippies, let's love each other. And then you discover, no, I'm an egoist, you're an egoist, get the F out of here, right? No, we have to work on it. We have to understand that this is the barrier that stands between us. Some quality in me, some quality in you. That's what makes people get a divorce after they get married. Why can't they stay together? What's changed? oh, we changed, he changed. No, he didn't change. We're two egoists. And in the beginning, we had some mutual interest. Later on, we couldn't overcome those differences. Same thing with humanity. And all we're saying is that Jews is the only group of people who one time had this other experience of being as one man in one heart. And that experience, you can tap into that. It's for everyone. All of humanity has to reach it. But who has to start it? That one group that actually attained it at one point in its collective history, if you want to call it that, right? Even though space and time, again, it's a corporeal concept. But, so that's the kind of the root of it. There's something really beautiful about what we have to do here. The question is,
we're asking you to write a second musical.
Yeah, a sequel.
I'm down.
I'm just kidding.
I just finished this. I'm doing our record release party at the Asheville Jewish Community Center on November 16th. We'll be filming it. And, if anybody from Israel is listening to this, we'd love to come over and perform it. We need some help to do that. But I think people would really love it, especially in Israel. I'd love to go to Israel. My mom worked for Israeli Bonds. It would be it's about Jewish identity, and I think it'd be perfect.
I think you should come there. By the way, just
honestly, some of the musicians are hesitant to go, but I was like, no, come on, we need to do this. So I'm open to doing that. I think I may say something here. I'm used to saying things that are controversial or get people mad, but I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I think the reaction, what happened, of course, I hate to have to say this because it just seems obvious, what happened on October 7th was horrible. But I think how Israel reacted not only hurt and killed many, many, many innocent people, but it hurt Israel's soul. It hurt Israel's Jewish history. And it's interesting when you talk about how Jews got to come together. As a Jew, I'm affected here in the United States by Israel's actions. I have to explain actions that I don't necessarily agree with. I think there's something about, I think there's a commandment that it's about not worshiping idols, idolatry. Well, a state, worshiping a state is like an idol too. And if you get to where you worship a state more than your morals or ethics or your thousands of years of history, it's a conflict. There's a conflict there. And I think Netanyahu doesn't see that. He maybe sees his own personal ambitions, but also the state has become more important than the Jewish soul. And I think there's been huge mistakes here that can be remedied. But I think Israel has to make Israel could be the leader in bringing peace together. It could show all of their neighbors who want to eliminate them, hey, we're the good guys. We're going to defend ourselves, but we're really good. We follow the laws. We're going to be generous. The Jews can lead because the Jews have led before, and the Jews are capable of doing that. They have the strength to do that as people. So, sorry if I'm saying anything that's controversial here.
No. My only thing was I would encourage you to come to Israel sooner than you think, because I think that you'll find that the calamity of October 7th, actually, first of all, October 7th stopped the potential civil war that was brewing here on October 6th. And the upshot of the 7th is the level of this renewed sense of unity and mutual responsibility, arvut as we call it in Hebrew, that has sprung here among. Forget the politicians, forget what they're in the media. Those are the last places to look for any inspiration. The people, young people especially, they're all coming together. There's no in Israel right now. There's no really a conflict between right and left and all that. No, there's a conflict between a majority of the people who are now starting to see the critical necessity of coming together no matter what, and a small minority that still wants to run things the old way. And some of them are in politics, some are in the media, some are in the in the all power positions. But those things will go. We don't care about that. What we do care about is how do we take advantage of the opportunity that was given to us, whether it's this current ceasefire, relative peace and quiet here, there. It's always a little bit of time. How do we take that and catapult that forward? That's what we want to do. We want to inspire Jews to do the work, not to sit back and and relax now that okay, now there's a ceasefire, I can chill. They'll stop saying terrible things about Israel, so I don't have to defend them. And I say, forget all of that. Don't defend Israel. Let's just focus on bringing us together. That you'll find all the we'll find all the reasons in the world not to, and yet all the necessity to do it, to be an example to people, because they're looking at us this way.
Sounds like a good plan. I'm down. Sign me up. You're talking about the law. I was thinking before, one of the things I really like about the law is that I get to make my argument. The other side does not interrupt. I finish, and then they get to respond, and then I get to respond. The judge says, it's order. It's very orderly, and maybe a little, maybe it's a little stiff, but everybody gets their turn, and nobody shouts down at each other, or ad hominem, which is personal attacks, are frowned upon. It's all about the argument, and I love that. I love that about the law. And if we were better about that, then sometimes I say to people who I'm in an argument with, wait a second, you didn't let me say anything. Well, I know what you're going to say. Oh, do you? I wish you were a lawyer when you'd understand the rules of engagement. You have to be fair. You have to let your other side present what they have to say, and you listen too. You listen really carefully. At least listen carefully enough to where you can rebut what they're going to say. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things that I like about the law, and my mother was particularly happy when I became a lawyer.
Wow.
Lawyer or doctor, she said. I got two choices. So finally, I went to law school at age 38, and I went to law school at night, and she was the beaming, proud mother in Flushing. She used to give my cards out on the street. My son's a lawyer. So this is a good conversation. I really appreciate you all having me on here.
It was our pleasure, Alan. I put a little quote in the chat. We usually ask our guests to read a little quote from the sources. This is from Likutei Halachot, Assorted Rules, since you're a lawyer. And it's from a particular, it's rule number 4, from Blessings on Seeing and Personal Blessings. But if you can give us, read it for all of us to hear, that would be great.
Oh, you want me to read it?
Yeah, of course. That's a custom. That's a tradition here.
Okay. The vitality is mainly through unity, by all the changes being included in the source of the unity. For this reason, quote, love your friend as yourself, close quote, is the great rule of the Torah, to include in unity and peace the vitality, sustenance, and correction of the whole of creation is mainly by people of differing views becoming included together in love, unity, and peace. So I agree with that, and I think we have to be careful. It's not only just Jews, it extends to all humanity. I have enough of a flower child and hippie in me still to hope that's going to happen someday. I'm realistic, about the failings of humanity and the hatred that still dwells in many of people's hearts. But I've got grandkids. I have 6 grandkids. I think, what am I leaving them? What kind of earth am I leaving them? And it has to be. We have to, we have to end war. We have to come to peace. I mean, if everybody. I was wondering, do you guys have universal health care in Israel?
There is, Israel is a little bit socialist in this. There's healthcare, there's education, there's a few things that are included.
So you follow Mandami in Israel then, huh?
No, he follows us.
So I mean, So
the rule book.
Well, it's good. That's what we do. We need to, take care of each other.
Yeah.
And I agree with all that, and I appreciate when I do stuff like this. It reminds me I have to go back and read some of my Jewish traditional books to sort of refresh myself on who I am. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on this show today very much, and I hope you go to my website, sarahauthorproject.com, and check out the album. It's on Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, all of those. Listen to it as a story. Some of the media split it up, but as a narration, as a narrator, it tells a story, and then there's music, and it's an entire life story of somebody who's searching for the identity and questions that we've asked today. So I think it's happy that you have me on the show. I think it's relevant to what we're talking about.
Thank you, Alan.
It definitely is. Thank you, Alan, so much for giving us the time and for sharing just a few of your great stories. I invite everyone to go check out the link. I actually clicked on it before when I had the bio. I started listening to it, so I encourage everyone to listen to it. If you're in Israel, Alan's looking for a little producer / agent who wants to put it together. And I'm extending an invitation to Alan. Come to Israel, drop me a line. We'll get together for coffee. Anyone else who has doubts about the state of Israel and what it should be exporting the world, come to Israel. Spend some time with the people. Forget the politics. Forget the media. They don't do justice to anything. Just come spend time with the people. You'll see what's actually brewing here, what's growing here. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And we're the Jew Function. Like us, subscribe, hit the bell. You get updates on when we go live, and leave a comment. It helps if you find value in this podcast. Leave a comment. It really does help bring this up in the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm. So that's it. Until next time, we're the Jew Function. Thank you, everyone, and have a great.
Thanks, Alan.
day.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, Alan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good meeting you guys. Take care.